and will greatly cut down on tourism to Las Vegas and Nevada, particularly this summer, the lifeblood of the Las Vegas and Nevada economies. And then when you add in the soaring cost of jet fuel that will raise airline tickets, that will do far more damage to the Nevada economy and Nevada families than any gain from Trump's tax policies. So yes, if you're a multimillionaire or a giant corporation, Trump's policies are really helping you. With Trump's policies, the owners of Las Vegas big hotels will do far better than the staff, the custodians, the drivers, or the servers. If you have to work for a living, Donald Trump's tax breaks, coupled with his other policies, are turning out to be a giant failure for you, putting your family in an economic hole. On Department of Homeland Security. Well, all this week, the Republican leader has come to the floor to try and pin his party's failure to fund the Department of Homeland Security on Democrats. He did it again today. He said, quote, we Democrats shut down the appropriation process, that Republicans have been forced to do this the hard way. Let's be very clear about all of this. DHS has been shut down now for over 60 days for one reason, and one reason only. Republicans have been so paralyzed by their own dysfunction they cannot govern. Republican leaders in the House and the Senate are busy fighting with each other. And that is what's caused this paralysis. Remember, it was Thune's bill that we passed in the Senate at the end of the last work period, not a Democratic bill, it was Thune's bill. Thune put the bill on the floor to fund every single agency within DHS except for ICE and Border Patrol. And it passed unanimously. It was Thune's bill. Democrats agreed and voted yes. In fact, Democrats agreed twice. It was Speaker Johnson, cowed by radical right-wing Republicans in the House, who stood in the way, not Democrats. If Johnson would have put the bill on the floor, which he was afraid to do, it would have passed. So if the majority leader wants to put an end to this Department of Homeland Security shutdown, he should start talking to Speaker Johnson in the House instead of pointing fingers at us. That's why DHS remains shut down, even though every single Democrat stands ready to fund agencies like TSA, FEMA, Coast Guard, CISA, and at a moment's notice. But this is not the path Republicans want to take. They do not seem interested in reaching a compromise to rein in ICE with exceedingly simple guardrails. We were clear from the start about what kind of reforms the American people want, and Republicans have never moved, never budged. Republicans seem so sickened, in fact, by the idea of basic reforms to ICE that they would rather take up weeks of the Senate's time ramming through a party-line reconciliation package without a shred of the reforms that Americans demand. Common sense reforms that police departments in every part of the country obey. No masks. Warrants when you break into someone's home. Cooperating with local authorities. That's right. Instead of passing legislation to lower gas prices, lower grocery prices, lower energy costs, Republicans want to hijack the Senate and spend weeks on reconciliation to ram through billions more for ICE with zero reforms. So while I have great respect for the Republican leader, the plain facts are these. Democrats are not the ones dragging this shutdown down on. Republicans are. And again, I say to Leader Thune, Republicans could open DHS today. All they have to do is start listening to the American people and stop obeying Donald Trump and the MAGA radical right. On Iran. There's an old saying that says success has 1,000 fathers, but failure is an orphan. The Republicans who voted against our War Powers resolution yesterday, they may try to dodge responsibility for Trump's failed war, but they have joint custody over this debate. And certainly, the war is a debacle. After 48 days of destruction, carnage, and soaring costs here in America and around the world, Trump has no idea how to end this war, just as he had no plan when he started it. All this war has gotten us is a more radical Iranian regime with greater nuclear ambitions, a closed Strait of Hormuz, skyrocketing gas costs, and the ire of the world. Is anyone surprised that only 1 in 4 Americans think Operation Epic Failure has been worth it? That's what we call it, Operation Epic Failure. Trump isn't practicing the art of the deal. Trump is practicing the art of defeat, and he seems all too good at it. Republicans are kidding themselves if they think they can distance themselves from Trump's Iran blunder by sitting on the sidelines. When it comes to war and peace, the most important decision a legislator can make, Republicans in the Senate and the House have an obligation to take a stand. But they're putting their heads in the sand. They haven't even had one hearing on this war. This is a war that's going on close to 50 days, creating huge problems for our economy, huge problems for our national security, and not one hearing? What are you afraid of? Republicans have had 4 opportunities to support our War Powers Resolution, to finally reassert Congress's constitutional authority, and each time they have said no. But the debate's not over. Next week, Republicans will have to answer the question again. Do you want endless war with Iran, yes or no? Senate Democrats will bring our War Powers Resolution to the floor for a vote next week and every week that Trump's war continues. Republican silence is a stamp of approval. Republican silence is a stamp of approval, saying they will support, acquiesce, and go along with this disaster. I thank Senator Duckworth for introducing this resolution and arguing for it so eloquently as only she can. And I want to thank Senator Kaine for keeping this pressing issue on the top of the mind for the Senate and for the nation. The same goes for Senator Booker and the so many in our caucus who have participated in this debate. Finally, on Assistant Chief Sean Gallagher, I want to join the rest of the Senate today to say thank you and goodbye to one of the most beloved members of the Capitol Police, Assistant Chief Sean Gallagher. He retires today after 25 incredible years. He joined the department in April of 2001, has been part of keeping the Capitol complex safe during the most consequential moments of our nation's history, from national crisis to presidential inaugurations to papal visits and so much more. After January 6th, he led the establishment of the department's peer support program and helped create the Howard C. Liebengood Center for Wellness to support officer well-being. We thank Assistant Chief Gallagher for 25 years of service to the U.S. Capitol Police, to Congress, and to our nation. We say goodbye and thank you on your retirement. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator Minnesota.
Are we in a quorum call?
We're not.
Mr. President, we have a vote before us today. And this vote is involving an unprecedented use of a procedural mechanism that would have far-reaching consequences, not just for the beautiful Boundary Waters Canoe area in Minnesota, but for public lands across our country. And I want to thank my colleagues, including, of course, Senator Smith, who you are about to hear from, Senator Heinrich and Baldwin, for speaking out against this resolution on the floor last night. I have especially been careful when you look at a project like the one proposed here that is so close to the cherished Boundary Waters Canoe area. And I continue to have concerns about this administration's intention and their disregard of science across the board in every agency in the government, but especially when you're looking at something like this. So, as many of my colleagues know, I am the granddaughter of an iron ore miner. My grandpa loved that life, but he mostly also loved the time he had in the outdoors. He would go down in a cage 1,500 feet every single day with the lunch bucket that my grandma would pack for him, that black lunch bucket. And I always thought, what did he think when he was going down every day? When he was saving money in a coffee can to send his 2 sons to college when he never even got to graduate from high school? Well, he would think of the outdoors because he loved to hunt, he loved to fish, and he loved to pick blueberries. In his later years, he became a foreman of the mine, and I would meet people when I was first running for the United States Senate up in northern Minnesota where my relatives live, and they would say to me, my dad worked with your grandpa. And they said a lot of times the foremen, they would never go down when they found a new part of the mine. They'd always stay at the top and radio down. But your grandpa, he always went with the guys, and he always went first. That was my grandpa. So the joy he had was the outdoors. And that mining life is so important in northern Minnesota. And I have stood with our miners. I've stood with them when steel was dumped from China. I have brought the former president's chief of staff up to northern Minnesota, where we met with steel workers, where we met with mine owners, and we have made the case for changes. We've made the case for their benefits. We've made the case for them, and that is why we're getting a new mine, Mesabi Metallics, which is a taconite mine that I just visited last week. It's incredible, hundreds and hundreds of new jobs about to open, construction jobs, and that permitting process has been fair and it's been fast. But what we have today is something else. It has always been a balance of the working life and mining and the outdoors. My family values the outdoors. My mom and dad met in the Twin Cities Hiking Club, and generations of Minnesotans have found this same joy up north. So let's talk about HJ Resolution 140. It would threaten public lands across the country. So many of our colleagues know this. Senator Smith has made this case ardently and repeatedly. Secretaries of the Interior have long had the ability to issue public land orders to reserve federal land for specific uses, setting it aside for things like infrastructure, certain military purposes, training, border security, protection, and yes, conservation. But now, for the first time, the Congressional Review Act is being used to rescind a public land order that bans mining in the Boundary Waters for 20 years. Senator Heinrich, the ranking member on the Interior Committee, will soon tell you this is unprecedented. Public land orders have never been considered rules under the CRA and have never been submitted to Congress's rules. The Bureau of Land Management and Forest Service conducted a public input process. Today, the CRA before the Senate is being used simply as a way of revoking the land withdrawal without having to conduct the level of public engagement that's expected. The unprecedented use of the CRA will have broader disruptive impacts on the ability of land management agencies to oversee public lands all across the country. Yeah, this is focused on northern Minnesota today, but where will it be next time? What part of your state will it be focused on? What will happen to your public lands? If this CRA resolution were approved, public access to some of the nation's most treasured landscapes could be lost and the careful management of their lands and waters eliminated. There are hundreds of public land orders that have been issued to protect our public lands that would be put at risk. 25 military withdrawals would no longer be considered final. The CRA could even threaten the protected status of the Grand Canyon. So I'll close with this. as I did last night. Sigurd Olson, the great Ely, Minnesota author and conservationist who went from that small hardscrabble mining town to great national prominence of someone who loved the lands and a beautiful author. He wrote that joys come from simple and natural things: mists over meadows, sunlight on leaves, the path of the moon over water. That's the Boundary Waters to me. That's the Boundary Waters to so many people in Minnesota and across our country. In 1978, President Jimmy Carter signed into law Hubert Humphrey's bill to protect this area by creating the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. And this was a special, special place to my dad and to our family. My dad actually went to Ely Junior College when Sigurd Olson was the dean, and that launched a lifelong friendship. I have found books of Sigurd Olson in my dad's belongings after we lost him, with notes from my dad of their meetings together and their time together. As my dad said, the Boundary Waters is 1 million acres of waterway and forest unlike any in the United States. So we should be preserving and treating these public lands as treasures, not messing around like's happening today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from New Mexico.
Mr. President, why are we here today? We're here today because some people want to abuse the Congressional Review Act and use it in a way it's never been used before. The Boundary Waters is protected from copper sulfide mining because there was a secretarial order that was put in place, a narrow order authorized by statute under FLPMA, the Federal Land Policy and Management Act, which specifically spells out the Secretary of Interior's authority to do this. It's not a regulation. The Congressional Review Act was written to prevent regulatory overreach. Regulations are broad. They apply to large swaths of the country. They are not things that are authorized specifically in statute. This has never been done before. And if we do this here, if we do it to the delegation from Minnesota, who has spoken up again and again and again at why this is wrong, what about when it's aimed at Montana? What about when it's aimed at Alaska? What about when it's aimed at South Dakota? This is wrong. And why are we doing it? To pad the pockets of the president's buddy from Chile so that he can take our minerals, the American people's minerals, send them to China, process them in China, and then maybe sell them back to the American people with a tariff. This is nuts. Is that America first? That's America last. And what's at stake? What's at stake is 1 million acres of the most pristine public lands in the United States. Places where my kids have canoed and fished and forged their identities. We're going to do that to Minnesota. We're going to do that to the delegation from Minnesota. We're going to do that to the American people who cherish this place. 20% of the National Forest Service system's fresh water is in these boundary waters. And we're going to pollute that with sulfuric acid. This company plans to dump millions of tons of waste rock on this site that will never be removed. It'll be sitting there waiting for the air and the water to turn that waste rock full of sulfides into sulfuric acid. I can tell you as somebody who's been a natural resources trustee, who's had to negotiate with copper companies in my own state, that this type of copper mining has never been done without polluting the water. Never, not once. So we're guaranteeing that we're going to pollute the boundary waters. Like, I know it's fashionable today to talk about selling off the public lands. These places, this place that people like Teddy Roosevelt and Sigurd Olson and so many others fought to preserve, these are the places on which, they're the anvil on which we have forged our collective identity as a country. They are the places we are still free. They are not places to sell off to some foreign company for a few years of profit. A few years versus a century of identity for the people of Minnesota and this country. This is a dark day for this body. This is a stain on what the Senate used to be, but certainly is not today. The public lands are the one thing when I go home that unites my constituents from left to right. Whether you're a bow hunter or a bunny hugger, it doesn't matter. They love our public lands. They care about our public lands. There are many places that we can mine and do it right. My dad worked for Anaconda Copper. My grandfather was a gold miner. This is a boondoggle. This is wrong.
Mr. President.
Senator Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. President. To begin, I ask unanimous consent that the following interns in my office be granted floor privileges for the day: Hannah Schechter, Rosemary Lofstrom, Molly Burr, and Juliet Sanchez.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I want to start by just thanking my colleague from Minnesota, Senator Klobuchar, and Senator Heinrich, and Senator Baldwin, and all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle who have joined me in opposing House Joint Resolution 140. And, I start from this place. One of our most important responsibilities, I think, in this body is to protect our precious public spaces. Those places that, as Senator Heinrich just said so eloquently, help to forge our national identity and connect us to our past and to our future. I'm thinking of places like Yosemite and the Black Hills of South Dakota and the Grand Canyon, and of course the Boundary Waters. And traditionally, historically, in this body, we have approached our responsibilities to protect these precious places with a sense of balance. We think of the value of the wilderness itself. We also think of the needs for economic opportunity for our constituents. We think of our responsibilities around stewardship of these places, of these natural resources. And in that balancing effort that we have traditionally tried to take, we are guided by the science. We are guided by public input, what people in these parts of the country think is the best thing to do, because those folks that are closest to the issues, closest to the land, are going to have the best ideas about what should happen to the land. And also, Mr. President, we are guided by the long-standing trust and treaty obligations that the federal government has to the tribal nations, a sovereign relationship that goes beyond just the laws of this country. And, Mr. President, this is actually what Minnesota knows how to do. We know how to strike this balance. Minnesota is the #1 producer in the country of iron ore. The battleships and the tanks of World War II were built with Minnesota iron. And Minnesota is also moving down the path of figuring out how to safely and responsibly mine the copper and the nickel and the platinum group of metals that are there in the Duluth complex up in northern Minnesota. You could see it in the maps that I was showing last night. But, Mr. President, Minnesota also understands, we know that you can support mining, but that does not mean that you support every mine in every place. And I think that this is a bipartisan, and we understand this in our country. We can support the need for mining, but that doesn't mean that we mine on the edge of Chaco Canyon or on the rim of the Grand Canyon. And it does not mean that we think that a copper sulfide mine on the doorstep of the Boundary Waters is a good idea. So, colleagues, what you are about to do, should you end up passing House Joint Resolution 140, what you are about to do is to fly in the face of that balance that has traditionally been a bipartisan goal, something that we have traditionally worked on together. You are about, should you make this vote, you are about to overturn a public land order that was put in place 3 years ago that stopped not all mining, colleagues, but this particular kind of copper sulfide mining for 20 years in just one place, in this one place in the Superior National Forest on the doorstep of the Boundary Waters. And if this is the decision that you end up making, colleagues, in this goal that we have of striking a balance, you are picking one side over the other. You are putting your thumb on the wrong side. When it comes to protecting this precious place, you're choosing the wrong side because you're not protecting this place that needs our support, needs our protection. Colleagues, the outdoor economy and outdoor recreation is essential to the vibrancy of northern Minnesota. You are not choosing that if you make this decision and you support House Joint Resolution 140. The small business people that count on the economy of northern Minnesota, the outdoor recreation economy. I have a letter here from dozens and dozens of Minnesota small businesses beseeching the Senate to oppose House Joint Resolution 140. And the reason why, they tell us right here, they say, the love for the Boundary Waters powers a strong and enduring recreation economy in northeastern Minnesota. 17,000 jobs, over $1 billion in sales annually in the region. Many small businesses that have been able to grow and develop and support their families because of the access to this incredible resource of the Boundary Waters. But no, colleagues, you would not be choosing that in this balance that we're trying to strike. Colleagues, if you support House Joint Resolution 140, you are ignoring what Minnesota wants. Not only the hundreds of thousands of people who sent in their public comments during the process of setting aside this space and protecting it from mining, but the 70% of Minnesotans who say, no, we do not want this mine in this place. We want our elected leaders to protect the Boundary Waters. And I want to be clear because there's been a question about this. This is not just people from the Twin Cities who go up to the Boundary Waters to visit. This is everybody in Minnesota. This is people who live in northeastern Minnesota who want to see this protection done. So, colleagues, if you support Joint Resolution 140, you are also choosing to ignore the trust and the treaty obligations that we have to the Chippewa tribes in northern Minnesota. You're saying, nope, we're not going to pay any attention to that. That doesn't matter. You know that this mine is going to infringe on their hunting and fishing rights, their rights to harvest wild rice, but you're saying I'm not going to come down on that side of the scale. What you're going to do, if you support House Joint Resolution 140, is you're going to come down, who's the winner here? You're going to come down on the side of a Chilean billionaire. A Chilean billionaire who owns the largest copper mine, the largest copper company in the whole world. A Chilean billionaire who's going to take our minerals, ship them to the Pacific coast where they're going to go to China to get smelted, where this company has a sweetheart deal with China with their smelters. And then, if we're lucky, that copper is going to be sold back to us at a profit. That is not an America First strategy, colleagues. That is a Chilean billionaire first strategy. And I can't help but just recognize that as we are on the cusp of making this decision in the Senate, isn't it ironic That President Trump, who says that he is a supporter of miners, that he stands with steel workers, he is about to use foreign steel to build his billionaire ballroom off of the White House. What is that about? Now, look, I understand that there are different perspectives on this mining issue. I see this play out every single day in my beloved state of Minnesota. But as you vote, I ask you to think about this. I ask you to think about the precedent that you are setting here. Because here's what I've learned after having been in the Senate for the last 9 years. What goes around comes around. What goes around comes around. Because what you would be doing here, colleagues, is you would be allowing public land order, this public land order, to be rescinded under the Congressional Review Act. This is a dangerous precedent. This has never been done before. Public land orders have never previously been submitted by any administration, including the Trump administration, as rules subject to the CRA. This would be the first one submitted, even though this public land order was submitted 3 years ago, processed legally, done by the book that Congress wrote. So what would this really mean if this is the step that the Senate takes today? What this would mean is that any public land order that has been done over potentially decades could then be rescinded by some partisan act of Congress just willy-nilly. Think about what this means. It means mineral leases. It means timber public land orders in North Dakota. It means that any public land order that has been out there in the past, or potentially any administrative action, could be just undone under a privileged process in the United States Senate. Colleagues, I beseech you not to do this. I know that this is a terrible thing for us to do. I know that not only will it have impacts for my beloved boundary waters in my state, but that it will have impacts in all of our states. So as I close, Mr. President, I want to speak directly to the Minnesota people who care so much about the boundary waters and who care so much about the precious places that we have all over this country. You have organized, you have made calls, you have sent messages. I'm thinking about the hunting and fishing groups, I'm thinking about the outdoor groups, I'm thinking about the Minnesota citizens and American citizens. I'm thinking about all of the tribal leaders and members who have made your voices heard. And I want everyone to know that whatever the outcome of this vote this afternoon, that we will not stop fighting and we will not stop our work to protect the boundary waters. Of all the places that we have in this country, this place has such special meaning. It is a sacred place, and we will never stop defending it. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
The clerk will read the title of the bill for the third time.
HJ Res 140, joint resolution providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5, United States Code, and so forth.
The question is on passage of the joint resolution. Is there a sufficient second? Appears to be. Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks, Mr. Armstrong, Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Banks, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn, Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Blunt-Rochester, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Britt, Mr. Budd, Ms. Cantwell, Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Cornyn, Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Curtis, Mr. Daines, Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst, Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gallego. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mr. Graham. Mr. Grassley. Mr. Haggerty. Ms. Hassan. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Heinrich. Mr. Hickenlooper. Mr. Rono. Mr. Hogan. Mr. Husted. Mrs. Hyde-Smith. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Justice. Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis, Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Moreno, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Brown, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mr. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Spoon, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mrs. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young. Senators voting in the affirmative: Bozeman, Budd, Cornyn, Kramer, Crapo, Marshall, Moody, Rounds, Schmidt, Sheehy, Tuberville. Mrs. Blackburn, aye. Senators voting in the negative: also Brooks, Blumenthal, Durbin, Gallego, Hassan, Heinrich, Kelly, Klobuchar, Padilla, Peters, Smith, Warnock. Ms. Duckworth? No. Mr. Risch? Aye. Mr. Merkley? No. Mr. Wicker? Mr. Wicker, aye. Mr. Warner? Mr. Warner? No. Mr. Reed, no. Mr. Curtis, aye. Ms. Collins, no. Ms. Warren, no. Mr. Kennedy, aye. Mr. Ossoff, no. Mr. Sanders, no. And Mr. Moran, aye. Mr. Husted, aye. Mr. Moreno, aye.
Yes, and then another.
Mr. Coons, no. Mr. Cotton, aye. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Barrasso, aye. Mr. Lujan. Mr. Lujan, no. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mrs. Gillibrand, no. Mr. Scott of South Carolina, aye. Ms. Rosen. Ms. Rosen, no. Mr. King, no. Ms. Cantwell, no. Ms. Baldwin, no. Mr. Tillis, no. Mr. Langford, aye. Mr. Daines, aye. Mr. Bennett, no. Mr. Murphy, no. Mrs. Hyde Smith, aye. Ms. Lummis, aye. Mr. Fetterman, no. Mr. Johnson, aye. Mr. Justice, aye. Mr. Wyden, no. Mr. Thune, aye. Mr. Whitehouse, no. Mr. Welch, no. Mr. Hickenlooper, no. Mrs. Capito, Mrs. Capito, aye. Mr. Ricketts, aye. Thank you. Mr. Kim, no. Mrs. Shaheen, no. Mrs. Fisher, aye. Mr. Schatz, no. Mrs. Brett, aye. Ms. Cortez Masto, no. Mr. Armstrong, aye. Miss Ernst, aye. Ms. Blunt Rochester. Ms. Blunt Rochester, no. Mr. Lee, aye. Mrs. Murray, no. Ms. Slotkin, no. Mr. Booker, no. Mr. Shipp, no. Mr. Cassidy, aye. Mr. Sullivan, aye. Mr. Schumer, no. Mr. Hoven, aye. Mr. Young, aye. Mr. McCormick, aye. Ms. Hirono, no. Mr. Grassley, aye. Mr. Kane, no. Mr. Markey, no. Mr. Paul,
I'd had some friends who
aye. Mr. Graham, aye. Mr. McConnell, aye. Ms. Murkowski, aye. Mr. Scott of Florida, aye. Mr. Banks, Mr. Banks, aye. Mr. Haggerty, Mr. Haggerty, aye.
It was like a group house. I think I sort of got.
Mr. Cruz, aye. Mr. Van Hollen, no.
The yeas are 50, the nays are 49, and the joint resolution is passed.
President.
Senator from Alaska is recognized.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that with respect to H.J. Res. 140, the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Without objection. Right now, there. Under the previous order, the Senate will proceed to executive session to resume consideration of the following nomination, which the clerk will report.
Nomination, the judiciary, Andrew B. Davis of Texas, to be United States District Judge for the Western District of Texas.